Hello everyone. In this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and model out this armchair. Now with this armchair, I do happen to have a reference image of the front, which is what we'll use for a majority of the model. And I do happen to have this image that has some dimensions to it. So it'll just help us get a little more accurate to what we want. And within Maya, I'm going to go ahead and just start off with setting this to a 2-panel layout with the front perspective on the left and the default perspective on the right. Next up, go up to Create Free Image Plane. I'm going to open up the attribute editor on the right, click Image Name, and I'm going to go ahead and click this armchair front. Next up, I'm going to open up Preferences over on the bottom right, and since the reference image that shows the dimensions are in inches, I'm just going to click Settings, go to Linear, change from centimeter to inches, and I'll just save that. I'm going to go ahead and create a default cube, and just using those base dimensions, I'm just going to go ahead and punch this in. So I have a width of 31.1, a depth of 29, and a height of 33. So I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate those numbers. So X is 31.1, Y is 33, and depth is 29. Go ahead and zoom out, and I'll turn on X-ray mode. And now I can go ahead and select this image plane and just kind of scale this up, turn on wireframe. And I'm just looking to get this image plane as close as possible in scale to this cube. I'm going to go ahead and translate both of these up, and I'm just putting the feet of the geometry on the plane of Maya. Now from here, I don't really need this cube anymore. I'm just going to hide it, and this image plane, I'm going to go ahead and add it to a display layer, hit the third button twice, and now this image plane is no longer selectable. I'll just go ahead and grab this image plane, just translate it back a little bit, just get it out of my way. Now from here, I can just go ahead and start modeling. I'm going to create a default cube. Some of these grid lines are getting in the way, so I'm just going to come up here to display, uncheck grid, and at this point, I can just start tracing out this image as close as possible. So I got this piece right here. Looks like the image plane isn't perfectly centered. So I'll just go ahead and center that a little bit. Looks good enough. Just going to duplicate this cube, translate it over, and just start making one of the arm pieces. I'll just translate this up. For now, I'm just looking at the height because I'm just working to block out this geometry. Now, since this image is in perspective, these measurements won't be exact, but they will be pretty close. Okay, I can switch over to this view and start figuring out the depth a little bit. If I want, I can turn on that cube that I made from the beginning. So I think what I'm going to do is just start grabbing some of these front vertices and just snap them forward. This is back. I'm just going to snap that back. Let me go ahead and hide that again. Now looking at the reference, I do know that there is a back piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate one of these pieces. And here's where I am going to start guessing a little bit because I can't entirely see how that back piece looks. So I think something like that looks pretty nice. I can go ahead and snap this piece over, just get the other arm over, and now I can start forming these arms. So I'm going to add some edge loops. And I think what I want to do is maintain some of these edge loop positions just to kind of line up with these two cushions. I'm just going to add two kind of like so. Now I can kind of start pulling these over. And again, just kind of looking at this image, kind of follow along the shape. And to make it a little bit more round, I can just keep adding more edge loops based on where I need them. I think I'm going to add one more right here, and kind of bring this up higher. If I look at this, you can see what I have going on right now. For the cushion, I'm going to go ahead and add an edge loop in both of these directions. And this will give me a point right here where I can actually pull forward and start making this a little bit more rounder. Kind of like so. And I'm just going to kind of pull these in both directions just so that it's not perfectly flat. Do the same for this one. Go ahead and start positioning these legs. And I can just delete that geometry. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and start beveling each one of these pieces. So notice when I hit 3, the geometry gets all smooth. And what I want to do is define some of these edges so that when I hit 3 to smooth it out, it'll hold its shape. So I want to go ahead and select all the edges that I want to hold its shape. That's going to be all these edges on the front, all the edges on the back, and the edges on the bottom. Shift right click, go to bevel, open up the dialog box. I'm going to go ahead and do edit, reset settings. I'm going to select 2 segments and I'll just hit apply and see what that looks like. So notice when I hit 3, it's actually very close to what I want. So I'm going to change this fraction. Let's try maybe 0.25, which is just half. I can deselect it, turn off the wireframe, and then you can just start looking at the model. And I think that's looking pretty good. Can do the same for this bottom piece. In this case, this is just a flattened cube, so I can actually just select every single edge, shift right click, open up the bevel, and I'm going to copy the same settings that I had last time, which was 0.25, which should work out pretty well. That's looking really nice. And just do the same thing for this. Now I do want to make sure I don't have these inside edges selected because I don't want those to have a hard crease. So I'll just bevel these like so. Do the same exact thing for this back cushion, just hitting G to duplicate the last command. Now notice these should be a bit more round than what I have, so I'm just going to kind of manually space these edges out just a little bit. Now when I hit 3 on it, notice how they get a bit rounder. And do the same for this bottom and maybe this one as well. And I think I'm going to just grab these faces, push them forward, still trying to make it just a little bit more round than it actually is. So the closer these edges are together, the harder that crease will be, and the farther apart they are, the rounder it'll be. It's looking pretty good. And grab this piece right here. And using the mirror tool under Mesh Mirror, open up the dialog box. I'm going to go ahead and reset all settings. I'm going to uncheck cut geometry. I want world on, and I want to mirror it in X. And notice when I hit apply, mirrors over perfectly. These legs, I'm going to go ahead and bevel all of them at the same time. And since I want a tighter bevel, let's try 0.1. That looks pretty good. Just going to go ahead and grab these verts, and I don't actually want to see a gap, so I'm just going to kind of translate them in and push them into the cushion a little bit. And I have this back piece, just going to do the same exact thing, do a bevel, and I think I'll go back to 0.25 and apply. And now just to fix some of these issues, notice how I do have some gaps right here. Just going to go ahead and add another edge loop right here. Maybe I'll add one right like so, and then one more right there. And all I'm going to do is start scaling some of this just to get some of these pieces touching. I think I'm going to grab some of these edges right here and kind of pull them in. And something that I can use is I can turn on symmetry up top. So hit this little drop down and do Object X. And I think I'll just start off with those points. All I'm doing is trying to get some of these to kind of overlap. I think I'll do the same with the cushion. Do the same with this piece right here. And just like that, we have an armchair.